10 Canucks stars have been regarded amongst the top 300 players to watch heading into next season, with 4 of them landing in the top 50 alone, who are sure to have big implications on the Canucks next season. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Canucks this offseason as the preseason quickly approaches. But with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Canucks stars in top 100. Now, Daily Faceoff published their list of top 300 fantasy hockey players to watch going into next season. Yes, we know it's about fantasy hockey prospects, but a lot of you guys probably do play fantasy hockey or know that if a player is on a fantasy hockey radar, they're likely going to be a difference maker or make things happen and get points scored. And the Vancouver Canucks have no shortage of that, with 10 players making the list, with 4 of them alone heading in the top 50 and 5 in the top 100. The first of which should come as no surprise to anybody, and that was Vancouver's top scorer, JT Miller, with 103 points over 81 games with 37 goals, 66 assists. That's one thing you're going to notice with these Canucks players that made this list is plus-minus rating is going to be high, and the games played is going to be as high as well, with attrition being the key to Vancouver's success as well as depth, and JT Miller was the embodiment of that. He was great on games where they were winning. He didn't take all of the accountability on himself. He made sure it was a team win, not anything crazy. When they lost, he took the accountability on himself like a leader would. He's one of those true measures of a competitor as well, where he loves to win, but he hates losing more, and that's what you want from a competitor. I know Mark and I have talked about that at length, and we've said how that is how we want to see these guys play, and JT Miller is absolutely one of those guys. He's one of the undoubted leaders on this team, and he is going to be someone to definitely watch next season. It's amazing that he made the list this high up, and other leaders that made the high up on the list as well was our captain Quinn Hughes, who scored 92 points this season, over 17 goals, 75 assists, plus 38 rating. He was playing 24-41 time on ice per game. It seemed like in the playoffs it shot up even more so. It seemed like he never even came off the ice in the playoffs. He was playing a ton. He was really getting out there. He just wanted to carry this team as far as he was able to take them. And I think with him coming off of a career season like a lot of these players had, almost every player on this list that made it was having a career season with Vancouver last year, and with 4 of them being their core 4, I think Quinn Hughes being one of them definitely shows a lot of great optimism for Vancouver heading into next season, for him to build off of that. He is a smaller defender, but he's not someone that you're not going to notice on the ice. He was everywhere in the playoffs. It seemed like he was like white on rice, sticking to everybody as well as he could, trying to be everywhere at once. And I think he's going to build on his Norris Trophy winning season again to try and go back to back with Norris trophies. That would be amazing to see. And another player who would be amazing to see with a bounce back would be Elias Pettersson, who came in just behind Quinn Hughes at number 21. You see there in 82 games as well. Again, health was a big thing with these guys that did make this list. He did have 89 points over 34 goals, 55 assists, and a plus 20 rating, 1939 ice time. These are all guys that got their playing time. There's no shortage of playing time for these guys as well. These are your top guys. These are the numbers that you want to see out of those guys. And it's amazing to see that Petey, Miller, and Hughes, 3 of the top 4 guys, all made it into the top 25. I think there's going to be guys that everyone's going to have on their radar, and they should. I think this is a team where these guys weren't considered the stars that they are heading into next season, because no one knew what they were capable of as far as these top numbers that they were able to reach. Now that they've been able to reach it, the expectation has gotten higher with the microscope shortening on them as well, and the Canucks as a whole. We have more eyes watching us now, and I think we're going to rise to the occasion and show everyone that the Vancouver Canucks are here to play, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. And a 4th player that did make the top 50 was our goalie, Vezina finalist, I should say, Thatcher Demko, whose health was a bit of a concern, who might have very well held him back from winning the Vezina last season. If he is able to have a much healthier season this season, like it seems like he's going to have, I think that bodes well as far as seeing him potentially win the Vezina trophy, which would be amazing. And he isn't the only goalie on this list, and we're going to get to that later. And then heading into the one rounding out the top 100 is Brock Boeser, who in 81 games, 73 points, 40 goals, 33 assists. We are seeing him get better and better each season, after it seemed like it was a bit of a later bloom for him as a Vancouver Canuck. It seems like he's really hitting his stride now that he's surrounded with all the right pieces at play for him to succeed. You see there with his time on ice as well, 1836. He's playing a lot of minutes as well. He is going to be one of those top guys who is going to do that as well. Plus 23. He's making things happen. Now, plus minus is a stat that I say is one of the most underrated in hockey. It can mean one of two things as far as positive. Either you're riding coattails or you're making opportunities happen. With these Vancouver Canucks players and how much of a player's coach Rick Tocchet is, it's definitely going to be the latter in that there's nobody riding coattails on this team as far as production is concerned. Everyone who is contributing to that plus minus rating is making those ratings earned and not just riding anyone's coattails. And sometimes when it's a negative, when it's in the negatives, as we're going to see with one of the players on this list, sometimes you are a victim of circumstance. But we're going to get to that player in a minute because he is in a new home with us in Vancouver. But now we're going into the lower list sleepers into our second topic, and that's where we're going to get into the bottom 5 players that made it into the rest of the list. You see here with Filip Hronek coming in ranked at 182. He also had another great year. Him and Quinn Hughes were proving as one of the best defensive tandems in the NHL last season, where they were bringing the best out of each other. We're going to get more years of that with Hronek getting extended as well. So we're going to see this duo build and build and build upon their chemistry from last season. Filip Hronek was a bigger body guy, plus 23 rating, 23-26 on ice time. He was doing a lot. Again, he wasn't too relevant in the postseason, but the postseason was one that did hit a lot of guys pretty hard, where it wasn't really sure who was going to step up, when they were going to step up. And injuries was something that hit the team a lot. Hronek wasn't affected by that. I just think he just needed a bit more to get going, and I think next season he's definitely going to do that, especially when we see a more reformed power play where he could step in and be that bigger body guy who can try and make things happen and ruffle some feathers, as well as the other defenders that we have on this team. Another player who made the list coming in at 209 was Jake DeBrusk, one of the new additions. He played 80 games in Boston last season. So again, his health isn't a concern as well. Plus 4 rating. He was on a Boston team where there was a lot of mouths to feed. And now he's going to be on a Vancouver team where he can be one of those stars and not just one of those mouths to feed on a fully loaded team. He did put up 40 points, 19 goals, 21 assists. I think he's definitely going to see a major jump with this Vancouver team because they're a team that likes to spread the puck around. They don't just try and feed their top guys and make sure that they get their points like Boston did or some other NHL teams that we won't mention here just because we won't want to ruffle some feathers in the comments. But again, I think Jake DeBrusk on this Vancouver team is put into a wonderful position to succeed and have a career year like we saw with so many players last season and the players that are on this list. So I think Jake DeBrusk is in store for a major season and in his first season with the Vancouver Canucks, the first of many. And speaking of first of many, Artur Shilovs is going to make his first of many appearances on fantasy hockey lists. He comes at 262 on daily faceoffs list. And this is coming off of the fact that he only played a few games in the regular season and then was thrown right into the postseason. So he made his opportunities count where he's landing in the top 300 fantasy hockey players just based on playoff performance alone. And his playoff performance alone was enough to get the attention of not just the daily faceoff, but the entire NHL as a whole. Everyone was watching him. Everyone was hooked onto the Artie party. And we have 2 more years of it in Vancouver. So that's going to be amazing to see how he blossoms with Thatcher Demko as his almost mentor, where this could be one of the best goalie tandems in the league, perhaps the greatest, where you have a 1A and 1B type goalies in those situations rather than a 1 and 2 like most of these teams have, and someone who is going to be reliable when Thatcher Demko if or when Thatcher Demko does have some injury stumbles along the way. We don't know what his recovery process is like, other than we just hope that he's going to come back stronger than ever. But again, I think having Shilovs in there is going to be great and bodes well for Vancouver's future and for next season, having a solid backup between the pipes like that. And someone else who is going to be another one hoping to build on a career season is Connor Garland. He had 47 points last season. I think he's going to make that jump to potentially 60. In the playoffs, he was hungry for the net. He was one of those players where in games where Vancouver seemed like they were falling asleep at the wheel, he was someone who was always going. He was like the Marty St. Louis of this Vancouver team, where he was going to be the gas that just kept this engine going. 200 shots on net for the regular season. He was one of the highest shooters on this Vancouver team. Despite having a 14:32 time on ice, I think we're going to see that go up significantly. He had a plus 19 rating, especially when you have Dakota Joshua also coming back, where they are the Batman and Robin of this team. We've said it time and time again. He is Robin, Dakota Joshua is Batman, and when these guys are on the ice together, they're going to be on one of the best lines in hockey. Definitely probably the best third line in hockey when we see them out there. So they're going to make a case as to why they should be talked about more and more and more, hitting into more and more of next season. And the last person heading out that list on the 10th spot is the only one with a negative rating in the plus in the minus rating department, where he had a -5 in Detroit. Again, he could have been a victim of circumstance. Detroit wasn't the greatest of teams. They were fighting for that wild card spot throughout the entire latter half of the season. But he's someone who's going to get shots on net. He had 18 goals, 25 assists in 76 games for Detroit. He did have the lowest game count aside from Thatcher Demko on this list, and one of the lowest time on ices. But again, like DeBrusk, I think Vancouver is going to utilize him in a way that other teams couldn't, the way that Detroit couldn't, the way that Boston couldn't with DeBrusk. I think Spronger is going to get utilized very well and be one of those players that Vancouver can just have another great year and just bring the best out of him to make sure that they're firing on all cylinders to be the best player that they possibly can be. But that's going to round out the entire list of the top 10. And then we're going to get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And we see here from Tess Bruder that the coach dictates a style of play. If a player cannot meet it and has no desire to meet that style of play, he is gone. And that was referencing the last video where we talked about the trade with Kuzmenko last season, where it might have been divisive amongst fans. But I think we see this season where we didn't bring in any rentals this season. We brought in guys that are going to be full-time. Let us know what you guys think as far as these new additions, how they're going to shine in Vancouver. We'd love to hear what you guys think down below. And what did you guys think of Daily Faceoff's top 300 list? Do you think the Vancouver Canucks players ranked a little too low, a little too high? We'd love to hear what you guys think as far as they rank. Let us know in the comments down below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.